Again, ladies and gentlemen, 49 coming out another community shoutcast for the AGI Gaming Dota 2 National Tournament. We're finally on to game number 3, the third and final day, loading into a round 4 losers bracket between the Doto team and Quick and Fast. This match will determine who gets to move on to the next stage into the semi-finals and which team will be eliminated. So the Doto team and Quick and Fast is game number 1 out of a best of 3. Haven't seen Quick and Fast play at all, but I have been seeing a few games with the Doto team being playing. And so far, the understudy, despite being playing some rather strange item builds over in his heroes, he seems to really like Sanj and Yasha for whatever reason. They have been making it work some very big teamfight combinations, so it'll be interesting to see how they pull off, how they fare against Quick and Fast. I haven't casted before, but I'm assuming they're a fairly competent team. Looks like we're just waiting for Mr. Pizzoki to load on into the game, and we should be good to go. There we go, a few pings coming out from both teams. Loading in, looks like Quick and Fast have first pick for game number 1. Their drafter Sack will be up against Nado Whistle, who also seems to go by Nado Book and Nado Squirrel. He constantly seems to be changing the second part of his name. I'll have to ask him about that sometime. It'll be interesting to see which hero makes it past the first batting stage. Now, we've been seeing a lot of Tidehunter actually creeping into the first batting stage. Usually we see heroes such as the Bat Rider as well as the Doombringer being banned out, as well as the Lycanthrope. So these are heroes that you don't want to play against, or heroes that have such amazing versatility with their toolkit that you just want to ban them just because they can become such a huge nuisance. So Bat Rider is one of those heroes. Curry Puffs from YBS, however, in one of the matches casted yesterday, was able to completely destroy his tri-lane, even though he was 1 against 3. The instant one that the other support hero rotated away, went in for a double kill. If you get enough sticky napalm stacks, he could easily rain all kinds of havoc. Looks like Mr. Pizzoki is actually disconnected, but hopefully it shouldn't be too much of an issue, just because Sack, the drafter, is currently in the game, so he should be able to load back in. Doombringer first ban coming out from the Dota team, and looks like we've got Bat Rider as well as Invoker. So fairly standard bans coming out. It'll be interesting to see if TDT decide to ban the Tidehunter to give it away, or they might give it away to Quick and Fast. But that being said, if they ban out the Tidehunter, then you're giving away the Tinker. And the Quick and Fast also have the Radiant side advantage. That, yeah, there we go. They don't want to take any chances with that. So it could be a first pick, Tidehunter or a first pick Faceless Void. These have been fairly common first picks. Ancient Apparition also has been trending at the moment as a first pick, just because he doesn't give away much of your draft, and he's a very powerful support hero. So Quick and Fast, I'm not really too sure how their draft will go, just because I haven't seen much of this style yet. But would be interesting to see what they decide to pick up first, just because while first pick you do get to pick up the most powerful hero that makes it past the bannings to the first banning stage. Just because there are currently so many heroes that are in the S or A tier, second pick actually has a bit of an advantage in the sense that they can either go greedy and pick up 2 very powerful heroes, or they can pick up a combo. So Quick and Fast really deliberating and dipping into their reserve time. Of course, one of the things you have to keep in mind, if Quick and Fast are on the Dire side, and the Dire offlane for Tidehunter does give you the option to be the constantly Ancient Sack. But that being said, Radiant offlane generally is a much easier lane because you have access to the hard camp off to the side that you could pull to be able to draw the creep wave back, and also to give yourself a bit of EXP. So Shadow Demon first pick coming out from Quick and Fast. Similar along the lines of an Ancient Apparition pickup, you do it to kind of disguise your draft, but the drawback to the Shadow Demon is it immediately signals that you want to pick up either a Mirana or a Kunkka. Probably a Mirana, since Kunkka, the only teams I've seen do that recently has been IG, and that was during Game 3 of EG against IG in the ESL 1 Frankfurt. So Shadow Demon, very powerful support hero, just because he scales so well into the late stages of the game. Demonic Purge goes through BKB. Disruption can be used on your allies, so you can use it to counter-initiate or to save your enemy, to save your teammates when the enemy initiates. If your teammate happens to eat an arrow to the face, you disrupt him, so that by the time the disruption wears off, the majority of the arrow duration stun is worn off as well. So the Doto team, 2 picks available to them. They could go for a combo lane, such as the Bane Mirana. However, with a Shadow Demon on the team, on the enemy team, it becomes a bit more difficult just because you disrupt whatever hero the arrow is flying towards. Tidehunter, yeah, they're going for the Tidehunter. The big bad watermelon. Probably the most powerful offlane hero in the game right now, just because he has such immense teamfight impact. He's so difficult to deal with, and he'll always be able to find farm. Especially with the rework to anchor, with the buff to Anchor Smash, that's a 60% damage reduction, as well as the fact that Kraken Shell's been buffed, so it's 10 damage block at all levels. Mirana being picked up by TDT. Looks like Nado Whistle might be the one playing that. And Quick and Fast, they've got their second pick coming out. If they were hoping to go for the Mirana, TDT, they picked up the Mirana instead to spite them. So Shadow Demon and Dazzle, however, is a very powerful support duo, just because you can't go on the Shadow Demon since the Dazzle will be able to Shadow Grave him, and you can't go on the Dazzle because the Shadow Demon will be able to disrupt him. But you could pick up the Dazzle much later on in your draft. They're going for a Slark very early on. I'm not too sure how I feel about this because Bloodseeker still is in the pool. And that's a hero that completely outright just hard counters the Slark. So it'll be interesting to see if TDT have got that in mind. They ban out the Faceless Void. They don't want to deal with a team fight, especially in conjunction with the Tidehunter. Faceless Void can initiate with the Chronosphere, or Tidehunter can go in with the Ravage, then Faceless Void can follow up with the Chrono. Either way, that's a massive amount of team fight, and Faceless Void gives you so many options for your support heroes. You can pick up a hero like an AA and be able to constantly land those Ice Blasts. You can pick up Witch Doctor, pick up the Shadow Shaman, and have a way for your Mass Serpent Wards to constantly be able to deal damage. The only drawback to the Mass Serpent Wards is that they're immobile, and so if you've got a Chronosphere to lock them in place, the Mass Serpent Wards will be able to do huge amounts of damage.
Reserve time.
TDT, dipping into their reserve time. They've got to be thinking about a Bloodseeker pickup for the Slark, but it just becomes so difficult to figure out how to lane him, so that could be a limiting factor. Viper being banned out, and for good reason. Viper is an incredibly powerful 1v1 hero in the mid lane. You rush a quick mech on him, go for something like an Aghanim Scepter. You could take every single fight, just because of the 950 range on the Viper Strike, as well as the fact that it's a 80% stand level 3, goes through BKB, affects attack speed as well, lets you cripple anyone, as well as the fact that with Corrosive Skin, Viper is incredibly difficult to gank. Since not in the lane, if you trade hits with him, you're also going to be copying a lot more damage in return, and means that if you happen to throw out any kind of AoE spell, blind AoE, so you happen to clip the Viper, you're going to snare yourself. And quick and fast, dipping into the reserve time for the 4th ban, they've got to be thinking about banning out the Bloodseeker as well, unless they're willing to gamble with it. That being said, though, with the Shadow Demon on the team, they do have that defensive capability of being able to disrupt the Slark when the Rupture or the Blood Rage goes in them, to try to buy him some time. Templar Assassin, the 4th ban coming out from Quick and Fast, also a very good ban just because Templar Assassin, incredibly powerful 1v1 matchup, and makes some heroes that usually excel in the 1v1, such as a Puck, completely unviable.
10 seconds remaining.
So TDT, they know that most likely the Slark will either be mid lane, or he could be the tri-lane farmer. Slark can also function as the offlaner, but he's fairly unstable as an offline hero, just because, well, it hasn't had too much of an impact compared to a Tidehunter. If it's Slark against a Tidehunter in the 1v1 offlane, they decide to clash try Tidehunter will completely destroy the Slark. Lycanthrope now being banned up by TDT, and Ancient Apparition picked up for them. So Mirana and AA could be their support duo. Mirana also could function as a farmer, but that has tapered off just because Mirana as a one position hero needs a huge amount of farm to be really effective to start having massive amounts of DPS. Whereas as a 4-position hero, she could go run around the map creating space for the rest of her team, either roaming on her own or roaming in a combo. But with an Ancient Apparition, the Mirana has to roam on her own. But even then, in lane, having 2 heroes at 600 range with a Chilling Touch does mean that they could do an absolutely obscene amount of damage if they decide to trade hits, especially against a squishier support hero like the Shadow Demon. Quick and Fast, deliberating on their 3rd pickup. If they pick up an offlane hero, then it will determine that Slark is either a mid or a safe lane farmer. Until then, Slark has a fair amount of flexibility with what he's able to do. Jakiro being picked up. Shadow Demon Jakiro is actually a fairly powerful support duo because you've got easy setup. You've got Disruption into the Ice Path. The Liquid Fire coming out from Jakiro is a great way to not only harass the enemy heroes in the lane, but also be able to take towers. And Jakiro with his Macropire does a lot of work. Wraith King being picked up, so it looks like it could either be a farming Wraith King or it could be a 1-position Wraith King or 1-position Mirana. Personally, the 1-position Mirana does a lot of work compared to the Wraith King, just because it's much more difficult to kite the Mirana. With 600 range and with the huge amount of mobility she has from the leap, as well as if she builds a Yasha or a Phase Boots, you can't run away from her, so she'll be able to keep plinking away at you. Whereas the Wraith King, it's easier to kite him out with the 4-star. You can simply walk away from him. If he goes treads, he's not going to be moving very fast. It forces him to go for a Blink Dagger. So it could be the Ancient Apparition Wraith King support duo. Very powerful support duo, since the Wraith Fire Blast in conjunction with the Ice Vortex provides enough lockdown time for the Cold Feet to proc if the enemy hero is fairly slow. Timbersaw being picked up, so they're going to go Timbersaw v Tidehunter, so that's their designated offlaner. Timbersaw used to be a viable mid hero, but that has fallen off as of late. Looks like Mr. Pizzoki still has not reconnected back into the game. It could be that they're remaking after this into all picks, and they just want to get the picking and banning down the way.
10 seconds remaining.
However, the unfortunate thing is, actually, they still have the option of a mid Bloodseeker, but if they predict the mid Bloodseeker and send Timbersaw mid,
Reserve time.
could be rather difficult. So Bloodseeker he's an option available for TDT if they want to counteract the Slark. But they're going to need not only a good lineup for the Bloodseeker, but a player that's fairly confident with him. A Timbersaw against Tidehunter matchup. Tidehunter should easily be the zone Timbersaw out of lane and during the lane stage, but once Timbersaw picks up level 6, once he has Checkmate online, then Tidehunter has to be very careful, so Timbersaw can very easily go for a kill, especially if he decides to go for the max willing death build, which probably would be in his favor in this game. The max Timbersaw build, if he's on the one-on-one matchup with the Tidehunter, isn't going to help him too much, unless the Tidehunter happens to catch himself out of position. Anti-Mage being banned out by TDT. Bit surprising. Anti-Mage, while in paper, counters the Wraith King with the fact you've got the Mana Bone. Wraith King, if he's a one-position farmer, actually counters the Anti-Mage in the sense that he comes online much faster. So if your team and know when to group and when to fight as 5 and when to take towers, you can deny Anti-Mage of all space. So when even if he gets a 14-minute Battle Fury, he still spend the next 5-10 minutes farming. And Outworld Destroyer being picked up. So they've got their mid lane hero, their off laner, and their tri lane. Outworld Destroyer, one of the best 1v1 heroes in the game. You have to pick heroes that can specifically counter him, and so with Viper as well as Razor being banned out, the only available hero that can do okay against an OD in the mid lane at the moment is Lone Druid. But even then, that's a bit of a 50-50 situation. Outworld Destroyer, one of the most powerful mid heroes in the game, since through the Astral Imprisonment,
10 seconds
he decreases your mana pool, decreases your damage for intelligence here, and increases his own. And with his incredibly high base damage to begin with, it's incredibly difficult to lane against an Outworld Destroyer, since a competent OD player will be able to outlast it and out-deny you, which is much more important. So either passively win the lane, and then pick up enough farm to be able to simply just destroy you in fights with an early 4-star, with an early BKB, with something like a fast Hex up on him. The drawback, of course, of the OD is he's a very, very greedy mid-hero. He cannot gank at all. OD is a hero that you either fight as 5, or you sit there in your lane farming, or you TP in to help out with a gank if they happen to dive you. Otherwise, you just want to be sitting in that mid lane for as long as possible, similar to an Invoker, but at least Invoker with the Quas Exile as a global presence of the Sunstrike, and a Quas Wex Invoker can at least try to delay pushes. And Tuskarr being picked up. So it looks like a Tuskarr mid, Timbersaw in the off lane, a Slark tri lane with Shadow Demon as well as Jakiro. The Tuskarr up against Outworld Destroyer. I'm not too sure quite how well this will fare for him. That being said, Tuskarr does have a pretty good attack animation and fairly high base damage. But once he eats too many of those Astral Imprisonments, Outworld Destroyer should easily be able to zone him out of lane, control the creep equilibrium, and farm up his Storm. It'll be interesting to see if the OD decides to rush a mech, or if they'll be going to Tidehunter. Tidehunter usually rushes the Blink Dagger. So with a fast blink up on the Tidehunter and a fast mech up on OD, they could easily fight as 5 and take fights whenever Reincarnate's off cooldown, or whenever their Ravage is up. Sanity's Eclipse in the early stages of the game, not quite as important, just because Outworld Destroyer doesn't have enough intelligence yet, unless of course he's able to get a few Astrals up prior to the fight. So just going to introduce the players from both teams. I walk, mid player for TDT over in the Outworld Destroyer, fairly standard build coming up from him. The understudy, yeah, it's going to be a one position runner, heading over to the top lane as the safe lane farmer, the one position role. Nado Whistle over on the Wraith King, looks like a support Wraith King, judging from his items. Crap Pack, he's on support duty, already got Wars and Courier. Looks like no sentries up on other support heroes. Nado Whistle has a stout shield, however. So the advantage of the Wraith King as a support hero is once you pick up a point over in the aura, if there's nothing happening in the lane and you can't gank the mid lane for whatever reason, you actually just can farm the jungle with the other support hero. Notro, retard magnet for his team over in the off laner, with a safety ward up on him. Wants to run forward to place a safety ward, but they're ready and waiting for this. Quick and fast. Sack actually spots out Notro. Notro immediately backs away. Boots first advantage on him. Makes him very difficult to track down. Bagel over on the 4 position Shadow Demon. Mr. Pizzoki on the 4 position Jakiro. And looks like Hal over on the 1 position Slark. With Boondoggler on the 3 position Timbersaw. Notro, he's going to be very careful. Liquid Fire being scaled up at 1 by Jakiro, and not going to bother to go for a kill attempt. They just want to zone him out of lane. So Sack returning back into the lane. Looks like he scaled Snowball at 1, so he really did want to go for the kill. Safety ward immediately being placed by the Radiant side, but that's a fairly obvious safety ward placement. But the fact that neither of the supports have a sentry ward means that safety ward won't be punished. And a very... there we go, safety ward placed by the Dire side. Good play. He didn't go for the greedy pub ward, which would be placed there, just because that gives you so much vision. And as you can see, that's the first place that the support heroes usually go for the D ward. So Notro, there's actually a haster in the bottom lane. If you could pick that up, it'll give him a lot of lane presence, since he could simply hang back and know that he can't get ganked. Well, good plays from Notro, actually hiding himself in the trees. Mr. Pizzoki just walks right past him, has no idea what's going on. Outworld Destroyer. One of the things that Astral's Imprisonment used to do is if you Astral someone and then you deny the creep, they'll actually receive 0 experience. But actually missing a fair few last hits in lane. Now he's picked up a point over in the Essence Aura, so we can start seeing some Astrals coming in very shortly. But similar to the Tinker laser with the blind, you Astral them when they go in for last hit or deny, and then you take the last hit and the deny. When you're doing a bit of poke and prod damage, Outworld Destroyer does hit very high. The early stages of the game. Tuskarr, with the Stealth Shield, he's really being able to just tank hits. All he has to really do is just sit there passively in lane, wait till he hits level 6, and then try to make space for the rest of his team with the Walrus Punch spells. The Snowball. Snowball is one of the best counter initiation spells in the game. And it's going to provide 4 seconds of invulnerability. One of the things you actually can do, but while I say that, Bagel rotating in with the Disruption Rune. Sack's going to throw out the Ice Ball. Catches out Iwalk, and Iwalk actually is in a lot of trouble, fleeing for his life right now, constantly eating hits, but with the Haster and the body blocking as well as that Snowball, that's going to be first blood happening over in the mid lane. Actually, they're backing off, but yeah, Bagel's able to take it. Good recognition coming out from Quick and Fast. I know they cannot leave the OD alone, since in any 1v1 matchup, especially with the Viper and the Razor being banned out, the OD will be able to run roughshod over Tuskarr. The only way to counter that is just to gank him. Actually leeching back the creep wave. And Sack, he's caught in a bit of an awkward position. He's going to slowly rotate himself back over mid. Never mind, they're going to pull it over to the hard camp. No, the creeps wave is going to follow Bagel. And so Tuskarr actually deprived himself of a creep wave of VXP. But while I say that, over in the top lane, Timbersaw. The disadvantage of a Timbersaw compared to a Tidehunter is Tidehunter has a much easier time on a 1v3 matchup than the Timbersaw. Even though Timbersaw wins in the 1v, will eventually win in the 1v1 against Tidehunter if he picks up that Chakram. Two supports have to play a lot more aggressive right now and try to zone him out. And Timbersaw actually can't do anything to contest them. He's got 1 point of reactive armor. When you see a Timbersaw in a 1v3 position, you go hyper aggressive on him at level 1 to either zone him out or to kill him outright. Just because Timbersaw at 1, he either has 1 point of reactive armor, in which case he's got no escape mech, and so you just blow him up, you lock him down, you stun him, you snare him. Or if he has a point of Timber Chain, he's got no survivability. And if you have a way to interrupt the Timber Chain, in this case I've got the Ray Fire Blast. If you have a Luna with Lucent Blessing, with the Lucent Beam, sorry, you can use it to interrupt his Timber Chain to kill him. The Understudy, 11 denies up on him. He's been doing a great job being able to deny as much experience as possible. Outworld Destroyer, only 8 denies, and 14 last hits. Then again, he did take the first blood, lose the first blood over to Quick and Fast. Tidehunter playing very passively. Mr. Pazoki's constantly a walk over and throw out the liquid fire. It's the reason why Jakiro is such a pain in the ass to deal with, especially as an offlane hero, just because you're constantly going to be eating ticks of damage. Liquid fire is one that actually hasn't been using liquid fire at all. Bit surprising. Every time it's off cooldown and the enemy hero is in range, you can throw it out at them. Does a lot of chip damage. Sack catches out Iwalk. Iwalk does have an Astral Imprisonment coming up. But he's assigned just to trade hits. He hits a lot harder than Sack does. And Sack with all those Astrals, he no longer has enough mana for an Ice Wall. So he's got enough for a Snowball, but nothing else. So Iwalk, he's in a fairly confident position. Looks like he's going for Treads first. Phase Boot's already up on the Understudy. And Boondogler, Crab Pack really isn't harassing him in the lane. He can run forward, pop the Chilling Touch, and start throwing out some right clicks. You can't just throw out regular order attacks against a Timbersaw, since with the reactive armor, it won't have too much impact. But as an ancient apparition, you can really zone out to Timbersaw with the Chilling Touch to play a lot more aggressively. Since once Timbersaw, if you let Timbersaw get level 6 in a reasonable amount of time, it will come back to bite you in the ass. He's a ticking time bomb, in the sense that he can run around the map creating space for the rest of his team by blowing people up. But at the same time, Timbersaw also is a fairly greedy offlane hero. Iwalk going to eat another Ice Wall to the face. Another reason why the Outworld Destroyer has tapered off, aside from the fact that people are getting better with dealing with them, the fact that in Dota 2 he actually used to be bugged with the Sunnies, with the Astral Imprisonment actually draining a portion of the mana. It didn't return the mana that it stole. And so as you can see, right as the Astral Imprisonment debuff wore off and he regained his intelligence, it restored the portion of mana that he would have had he not been Astral. And that was something that it used to not do, so it was an effective mana burn in that sense, that it wouldn't restore the mana at the ends. And so the intelligence that they lost, that was mana they would not have. With the smoke rotation coming in from the two supports, Crab Pack and Nada Whistle. Nada Whistle leading the way. They know that the Wraith Fire Blast has to land, followed up by the Cold Feet. And if they really want to be safe, they could use the Astral to try to ensure that the Astral Imprisonment to ensure that they could get a body block off, or that they could get another Wraith Fire Blast off. It's an 8-second cooldown. Although that being said, Wraith King does not have enough mana for 2. He went for the Aura at 2 so he could start juggling, as opposed to stats at 2. So a bit of a greedy support build up on him. Regen room being activated by the Tuskarr, so I don't think I can actually go for a kill up on him. Just because with the snowball, you can simply wait for 4 seconds, have TP support rotate in. That can be an absolute disaster for the supports rotating. Tidehunter level 4, so 2 points up in the Kraken Shell, 2 points up in the Anchor Smash. Slark going for a fairly standard build, Ring of Jakiro up on him. Probably wants to pick up his treads before he goes towards Blink Dagger. Invisibility picked up by the Wraith King, so he's going to be leading the charge. No ward to actually spot out any of the movement, but Sack, he knows that something's not quite right, just because Boondoggler, he knows that there's no supports. It's just the understudy. He could actually be playing a bit far more aggressive, just because he has that safety ward as well, so he knows that there's no supports. There we go, now he spots out Crap Pack, but that safety ward just worn off. And the bottom lane, Mr. Pizzoki still hasn't been throwing out any liquid fires. Notro's HP is far too high, considering he's leaning against a Jakiro. Another Whistle hanging back, winning the wings. Looks like a very early Sanity's Eclipse picked up Outworld Destroyer. You usually actually skip Sanity at 6, unless if you're going for a kill attempt. You can go for the 3-3 build, and since you want to max out your Essence Aura as soon as possible, and then you want to max out your Sanity's, your Astral to give yourself a lot more landing presence. But an early point up in the Sanity's Eclipse can prove to be quite useful, especially in a matchup like this where Tuskarr's a lot less intelligence than the OD. So if he's able to land off one more Astral, he can go for it. But another Whistle decides that not worthwhile, simply wasting a lot of time. Sack going to be eating the Astral once again. Looks like OD is on mech duty, so the headdress up on him as well as Intreads. Tidehunter still a slight EXP advantage. Would like to see him actually ancient stacking when the creep wave is pushed out like that and he can't advance forward at all. But Boondoggle as well, both offlane heroes getting a lot of gold and a lot of experience. Or rather, a lot of experience, not so much a lot of gold. Astrals are starting to stack up. If not a Whistles to go in for a gank attempt now, that's the best window of opportunity since the Sanity's Eclipse will do so much damage at this point. Notra, great play coming out from him, constantly hiding in positions like this. They have no idea where he is. Baker actually could, oh, never mind, he doesn't have a point in the Shadow Poison. Otherwise, the flying vision that provides, even though it's a small amount, would be enough for him to spot it out. Haste Rune up on the Outworld Destroyer. Outworld Destroyer is a mid hero as well. He's usually one that doesn't go for much bottle control, rune control. So bottle's usually not needed on the OD. But in this game, his supports have usually been camping it since the last time they picked up the enemy team picked up a Haste Rune. Didn't end too well. Looks like another Whistle rotating into the bot lane. It's another reason why the Jakiro is such a powerful support hero is he cripples the tower's ability to defend itself, cuts the attack speed in half. And that means you're going to get a lot of chip damage over on the enemy tower. Also means you can dive towers fairly effectively. If they had a Ravage up, they could look to go for an engagement, but Tidehunter unfortunately half a level shy. Sack being spotted out, immediately being pinged. OD can rotate if they decide to dive since he's got the Sanity's Eclipse. So that's the one thing that's good about picking up an early point in the Sanity. But almost level 9, once he is able to hit level 9, get 4 points up in both the Essence Aura as well as the Astral, he starts to become a huge threat. Since that's once you have 4 points up in the Essence Aura, you can pick up a point up in your Orb, and that's when you start to really do a lot of damage. With the OD, once you have about 1400 mana, you have infinite sustain for the Arcane Orb. Since at that point, unless if you, it becomes mathematically impossible for you to not proc the Essence Aura whenever you throw out your Astral. But that being said, this early on, since he only has 1200, if he gets really unlucky, there is always that option. But the thing to keep in mind with the Essence Aura is it's fairly underrated in how effective it is for the rest of your team. With the Tidehunter always throwing out Anchor Smash, Tidehunter's a hero that really struggles with the mana pool. Every ability that you use has a chance of blocking the Essence Aura, so OD and the Bristleback is a fantastic combination. Just because it gives you that ability to be able to constantly sustain yourself. Tuskarr being heavily outlasted, twice as many last hits, and almost 4 times and more than 4 times as many denies. Up on the Outworld Destroyer. There we go. Notro been stacking out the Ancients with 3 points up in the Anchor Smash and 2 points up in the Shell. He really can be clearing it out. But this has been spotted by the Tuskarr. Wraith King's now going to provide a helping hand with the Vampiric Auras. Also good for him to be leeching EXP for this as well. just because he hasn't been accomplishing all too much, and you want to have Reincarnate up as soon as possible. Ancient Apparition is level 5 in comparison. Timbersaw now has his Chakram, so if he ever catches the Ancient Apparition on his own, Ancient Apparition will pop. Looks like he actually went for a max Cold Feet build. Very, very surprising considering that they've been playing so passively. Maxing Chilling Touch usually is the de facto build now, or if you're playing really far from behind, or you have a specific liner, max Ice Vortex. Provides a lot more utility. Outworld Destroyer, almost the mechanism up on him. Sack with 13 intelligence, just barely has enough to be able to use the Ice Wall. Moonlight Shadow being used defensively. Shadow Dance also popped defensively as well. Notra, he wishes to God he had Ravage right now, since that would be 2 kills on the supports. Bagel turns around and disrupts him. Crab Pack eats the Ice Path to the face as well. Never mind, Ice Path unfortunately whiffs, but it buys enough space for the support to be able to disengage safely. And that's a free tower over the bottom lane. Looks like a Yasha first for Slark, so no Blink Dagger up on him. Double Arcane Boots just been picked up by both the Timbersaw as well as the Shadow Demon. Reason why I say Timbersaw is a fairly greedy offlane hero is he can't really gank or rotate until he has the Arcane Boots. He doesn't have enough mana to be able to go in for a gank attempt, unless if he's able to perfectly time all of his abilities and blow somebody up. But even then, just because abilities he does chew through a fair amount of money. Slark waiting in the wings. The Shadow Dance regen means that he knows that he's not being spotted, so there's no ward being placed on the high ground. Haste Rune being picked up by OD. He's got the mechanism recipe, so all he has to do is have that delivered to him. It's Slark not going for the Blink Dagger, which is usually the conventional pickup on him. Yeah, the neutral creeps have been stacked though. So with the support heroes, he should be able to clear that out very quickly. With the salve as well as Shadow Dance regen, he'll be able to keep himself sustained. It's good they're sharing the EXP with the support heroes, who haven't really been able to go for any kill attempts, so they are fairly EXP starved. Having fast level 6 up on your support heroes will mean a lot of work. Bagel, a lot lower level than Jakiro, he's been sitting in laner for a lot more. Could be getting a early point in Macro Pyro just because you've got the Ice Wall to help set it up, to lock it in place. OD makeup on him, probably wants to be going towards something like a 4-staff now. But with Ravage up as well as a mech, they can try to look for an engagement. Tidehunter actually looks like he's rushing the Blink Dagger, so he's really going to be relying heavily on that Essence Aura to be able to give him some kind of mana sustain these team fight engagements. Just because he's been so heavily zoned out, and you're starting to see the difference between the Tidehunter compared to the Timbersaw. Timbersaw, if he's zoned out of lane, he doesn't really have a comeback mechanic. Tidehunter at least has that comeback mechanic being to clear out the Ancients. And you see that once he kills that Ancient creep, he'll have that's his Blink Dagger up on him. Smoker to see being picked up by Bagel. So he's looking to try and go for some rotations, but 90 last hits over on the understudy. Great play coming up from him. That means that he has received almost every single last hit, as well as a few neutral creeps. Looks like he's going for S and Y once again. The understudy really seems to have some kind of queer obsession with that item. On the Mirana, not too bad of an item. The only drawback to it, of course, is if you'd simply picked up the Mel, you could have gone for a Drum into Maelstrom, or you've just picked up the Maelstrom. S&Y does give you a lot of mid-game impact because it's a lot of cheap stats. But when you're the one position hero and you've been given this much farm, very surprising to go for the Hand of Midas. We've got Bagel as well as Mr. Pazoki. Tuskarr wants to go for a kill, he knows something's not quite right. Shadow Poison can now be used to scout out. And the Outworld Destroyer, now he is level 10. Being punished once, but he's recovered very nicely. They need to keep up some pressure on him. He's got a point up in the Arcane Orb, and that's going to do a lot of damage. Especially to the squishy supports. The reason why Arcane Orbs are terrifying is just because it's pure damage. So OD looks like he's going for that 4-staff. S and Y up on the understudy, so he's got his favorite item. Wraith King looks like chose to go for a second point in the aura. Very surprising. You usually see 1 point in the aura and 1 in stats. Since mana pool is the only limiting factor for the Wraith King in the early stages of the game. And there we go, Notra. Blink Dagger up on him, despite being completely zoned out. He had 0 last hits in lane. He was able to recover quite nicely. Moonlight Shadow being dropped. Ancient Apparition does it. Catches up two of the Ice Path. Snowball's flying on Nado Whistle. Nado Whistle really wishes he has a reincarnate right now. Sandy's Eclipse drops. Jakiro dies instantly. Mech unfortunately has not been popped. Popped a bit too late. Could have saved his Wraith King. They should be able to get a kill over on Sack as well. Never mind, the Snowball's coming off cooldown very shortly. Drops the Ice Sigil. Understudy trying to chase him down. Actually turns around over on the Sigil. And Slark actually catches out the Outworld Destroyer. Nitro blinks on now. He doesn't want any part of this. Understudy's going to be very careful. Eats the Ice Wall. Shadow Dance's been popped. Ravage popped as well. Unfortunately, Shadow Dance's been popped. So Howl's going to be able to walk himself away. At least for the meanwhile. Boondoggle eats a fair amount of damage. Ancient Apparition Ice Path unfortunately whiffs. Sack turns around with the Walrus Punch. Ice Path staring him, but the Sigil's also staring up as well. Cold Feet actually doing a fair amount of dot damage. Looks like we've got a buyback from the Mirana. Understudy's out for revenge. He's got the SMY, so he should be able to chase down Sack. Even then, very expensive buyback since it wasn't a spree. And all in all, a fairly scrappy fight. Quick and Fast actually coming out on the better end for that. They did pick off Slark over on the other end. But in terms of CS, Slark also 100 last hits up on him. You can attribute that to the fact that he was completely uncontested in the lane, and the fact that he was able to clear out the neutral stacks. Nitro, not the best Ravage in the world, really could have gone a lot better, just because he called out Slark and the Shadow Dance. If he'd Ravage right before Slark's Shadow Dance, would have been a dead Slark much earlier on. OD unfortunately didn't mech even though when he arrived, so he could have saved the Wraith King. If Wraith King had a reincarnate, that would have been an absolute catastrophe for the enemy team. So that 75% snare. And the fact that he'd come back to life and be able to provide that Wraith Fire Blast. Bagel just going to do a little bit of scouting. Understanding it will be interesting to see what item he chooses to go for next. Probably going to be a Maelstrom. The most cost efficient DPS item in the Mirana. Desolator is also good as well, but Molnir currently out DPS is more cost efficient than any other DPS item in the game. Once the enemy hero has above 10 armor. Crapback going to be taking a fall. Bagel's actually caught up in the Cold Feet. Understudy chooses to commit to this. Bit of a misplay going out from him. He's going to flee for his life. Snowball unfortunately breaks. And 5 heroes now heading over to the top lane. They know that they have to take a tower for this to be worthwhile. They've got the advantage right now, especially with Ravage down and with the Sandy's Eclipse. Another Whistle. Reincarnate up, so he can attempt to try to defend this. But he's going to need TP support rotation. Nitro over the bottom lane. He's going to try to find his farm. Do some split push. Picks up a TP scroll. You know, so even though he doesn't have Ravage, being able to provide that Anchor Smash might be enough to turn these engagements. And Iwalk and the Understudy, they know that they can't defend top, so they're going to go for some split push, take down the tier 1 mid. Ice Blast actually catches on 4, that gives him a window of opportunity, especially with the Sandy's Eclipse. Oh, he could actually look to try to defend this right now, especially with the Reincarnator. Ancient Apparition, the Shadow debuff, unfortunately wears off. They could look to defend this, but they really wanted to. They choose not to. And they're playing it safe, they're going to try to take another tier 1 tower in the bottom lane, but they immediately back off. Nitro, he gets the hell out of dodge, especially with Sack hot on this trail. Now the Whistle actually jumps in, it's going to catch up Bagel. Even if he dies, oh never mind, he doesn't have enough mana. And Crappack as well, he's going to be taking a fall unless support rotates in. But Boondoggle fairly low from the Ancient Apparition Ice Blast. Decides to back off. The advantage of having the maxed out Cold Feet, I suppose, is even if you don't land the Sable, it does a lot of damage, but maxed out Chilling Touch would have done a lot more damage, which is the reason why you see that usually being maxed out. Arrow flies out, just providing a bit of reconnaissance. Scouts out the double damage rune, treads up on the Wraith King. Really wants a magic stick, or even just a wand. Ice Wall catches up Crappack's been eating the Walrus Punch to the face, but he's caught out with the Snowball. Ravage being dropped. How going to town? That Timbersaw Chakram's doing so much work. Understudy fleeing for his life. Where is your Sergeant Yasha now? Checkmate Atheists. He's caught in the pounce. Takes the fall and quick and fast. Really starting to dominate control of the mid game as they can group up and take the tier 1 mid. And that gives them a massive influx of gold that they really need. Especially considering the fact that Stalin Snowball under control. 2,000 gold lead, 1,500 EXP lead, and that's climbing. So even though their cores weren't able to receive as many last hits, the Tuskarr was completely destroyed by the OD lane despite the kill. They have to make up for it now. Slark is a Snowball dependent hero. Looks like Slark doesn't need no Blink Dagger. I guess he can rely on the Snowball initiation or the Ice Wall. So he's instead going for a very early IR Skadi. Ancient Apparition, he's been very on point with these Ice Blasts, but unfortunately there hasn't been a Tidehunter or a OD with the Sandy's Eclipse ready to be able to take advantage of the low HP and the Shadow debuff. Tidehunter really needs Arcane Boots just so he can continue to throw out these Anchor Smashes and engagements. The Anchor Smash does do a substantial amount of damage if you're able to get 2-3 of them off. Another Whistle continue to farm the bot lane, actually choosing to max out the Vampiric Aura, so still no points in stats. Even just 1 point in stats can mean a huge difference. So he's going to be trying to farm up in Blink Dagger. They do have Reincarnate up, so they've got all their ultimates big ultimates apart from the Ravage. Moonlight Shadow coming off cooldown very shortly, so they've got that as an escape mech. Looks like Understudy's going to be going towards the Maelstrom. He could also be going towards the BKB, which would be a very defensive item. But that's a sad day when your Mirana is forced to go for a BKB, especially this early on. Tuskarr going forward towards the Shadow Blade. So fairly standard build coming up from him. Hasterin spotted down at the bottom lane, he's going to snag that. The supports over on Quick and Fast are a lot poorer in terms of last hits, but in terms of net worth, they're pulling far through ahead just through all the assist and kill gold they've been receiving. So Slark, by far, leading the net worth scoreboard. OD's actually been completely shut down ever since his advantage in the early stages of the game. That's one of the reasons why, while I say that, Ancient Apparition punched in the face. The reason why I say OD's a greedy hero is when you're fighting against a 5v5 lineup like that, he needs too much farm and too many levels to really become effective. He wants to try to dodge fights until he's at a sufficient level, until he has our first few items. But that being said, if they're able to land a good Blink Ravage on 3 or 4, and if they're able to follow that up with the Ice Blast and the Sanity, they can instantly kill the support heroes, do a huge amount of damage and engagement, and drop pretty much every hero of the team to below half HP.
It has no arms to defend itself.
But the advantage of having Jakiro as your support hero as well as the SDs, they're both fairly durable. Sack gets gushed on. Snowballs himself to be able to buy himself some space. It's a 4-second window of opportunity where he can't be hurt at all. Actually turns around, gets stunned up with 3. Power runs in. Moonlight Shadow being dropped. No sentries available, especially this close to the tower. Another Whistle decides to turn around. He's got Reincarnate, so he wants to die. Bagel caught up with the Cold Feet. Disrupts himself, but that might actually enable the Cold Feet to proc. Never mind. Bagel's to be taken for one more Red Fire Blast. Mr. Pazuki also dying. Hal flees for his life. And Timbersaw arrives a bit too late to the party. He's got Bloodstone up on him though, so 23 minutes into the game. This Timbersaw ticking time bomb really was not zoned out in the laning phase. It could have played a lot more aggressively against him. Timbersaw at 1 compared to Tidehunter at 1 is a completely different story. They're grouping up in the mid lane. They're going to have to try to do whatever they can to wrest control away from Quick and Fast. Goldie did sign a dip in favor of TDT, so is EXP. If they're able to take that tier 2 tower, which they will, it's very low HP. Quick influx of gold going in for them. They really want to take out the tier 1 in the bottom lane, and they're pinging that out. Yeah, they know that at this point in the game, tier 1 tower, especially with all of them up, just a big sack of gold waiting to be smacked open. Mirana can finish her Maelstrom, she wants to go for it. Could be going towards the Desolator, which is the reason why she's holding onto her gold. Desolator, very good pickup in this case, just because all the supports have very low armor. Actually, every hero in the game, including the Slark, has low armor. Timbersaw's got the reactive armor, but that relies on him being hit repeatedly. If you're able to simply kill him or drop the majority of his HP in the early stages of the fight, a lot less effective. Mirana, one more last hit away from having that Desolator. The nice thing about having that support position Wraith King is you've got that 30% Vampiric Aura, which now works on range, but while I say that, Backstab comes in, Sack instantly punches Ancient Apparition in the face, great 4-man Ravage, landing with Timbersaw can take a lot of damage, Notro doing Anchor Smash, doing his gush, doing whatever he can. Another Whistle no longer has to reincarnate. Sandy's Eclipse is still up. Odie is not dropping, he drops it far too late, only on 2 heroes. Hal's gonna stab him down. The Understudy fleeing for his life, I don't know why he's trying to hold his ground, stand his ground. Charkram doing a lot of damage. Moondog caught up in the Cold Feet, but that's gonna wear off. Ancient Apparition punched again. Did he buy back for that? Sack eats an arrow to the face, but the Sigil there providing that snare. And the Understudy realizes this, he kills it. Notro comes in with the Anchor Smash. So they're able to trade 3 for 3. Sandy's Eclipse dropped far too late. The instant the Ravage shot, he had to go for it. Actually went for a BKB. So very defensive build coming in from him. He might be able to go for a kill over him. Boondoggle with Boondoggle. Cuts Notro in half. Arrow's going to catch him in the face though. And that should be the end of a huge free. Never mind. Walrus Punch comes in. Sack defending his teammates. Charkram doing so much work. Turnaround damage potential from the Timbersaw. Especially with 13 Bloodstone charges. Unless he's spotted out and stunned. Never mind. He's going to make it home. And the Sigil doing a lot of work in these engagements as well. It's a massive amount of negative attack speed coming up from the Sigil. And the Understudy wastes his 10-second BKB. Almost got a kill on a mega kill Timbersaw. Timbersaw going towards a Shiva's guard. He has not taken a single death this game. That ticking time bomb is starting to go off. Wraith King has picked up the Blink Dagger, so he's got that to be an initiate in. Ancient Apparition not having a good game in an Aya Skadi. Up on the Slark. Howl's moving castle. Now ready to rumble. Mirana forced to go for a BKB this early on means that while she will be able to survive these engagements, Mirana just doesn't do enough damage to be effective. That's where the S and Y pickup really starts to hurt you. S and Y is good on mid-game oriented heroes such as a Juggernaut, since every time you win a fight, every time you take a bunch of kills, you can take a tower off the back of Healing Ward. Mirana doesn't have that same capacity. She's very powerful in all stages of the game, but at the same time, she just doesn't. She's a jack of all trades, so she needs a lot of farm to become effective as a carry hero. And so when you're investing in a mid-game oriented item, and then you go for a BKB, you're playing scared, you're playing from behind, you don't have as much damage as the enemy carry, and unless you're able to kill the Slark before he Shadow Dances, he's guaranteed to get that Shadow Dance off. There's no way to counteract the Slark. And with that much HP, with the Shadow Dance, I don't think it's possible for them to really kill the Slark, or if they do, they'll have to invest every single spell they have, in which case, the Slark will be able to punch them in the face, the Timbersaw will be able to run wreak absolute havoc, especially with that many Bloodstone charges. Boondoggle with the maxed out reactive armor. More EHP than Jesus at this point. Crap Pack as well, constantly being called out by the Tuskarr. Tuskarr actually a fairly effective counterpick to Crap Pack, since he can use the snowball, walk on Ancient Apparition. Ancient Apparition relies on hanging far back in engagement and using his spells. If the Tuskarr just plays hyper aggressive on him, runs him and punches him in the face, then suddenly leaps himself into the common ward spot for the Radiant side, just doing a bit of vision. Leave himself down in a few seconds. There we go, but she really has to step up her damage. Since the later the game goes, the more powerful the Slark becomes, the more powerful the Timbersaw becomes, especially as her BKB starts to wear off, since she went for it so early on. Wraith King with a Blink Dagger and the level 2 Reincarnate. He is going to be able to provide, he's going to have to start to function as a DPS role. BKB now up on the Outworld Destroyer though, that is a much more significant pickup. It's OD. Doesn't really need damage items. Just by building survivability on him with the Arcane Orb, he will do insane amounts of damage, just because of the nature of the hero. So he wants to be building a Sheep Stick next, and then followed up by something like a Shiva's Guard. Stack as much int as possible. Good Sigil warding coming out. Sigil unfortunately just wears off. So they're going to try to sneak a Roshan. You see already just how much damage they're doing to Roshan with that Arcane Orb. 140 pure damage of whack, coupled with the fact that Odie is already hitting for 130, so 270 damage a swing. Now the Whistle there with the Vampiric Aura. To give Notra some sustain. Notra once again joined the short straw. He's the one that's got to tank all these hits. BKB up on Outworld. With all their ultimates up, they actually can take a fight, but they have to convincingly win that fight. If Slark is the only one left alive, they're able to kill every other member of their team. They could look to start threatening the tier 2 towers. Arrow flies up, might actually catch Bagel in the face, never mind, just barely whizzes past. Undersea runs and balls team, 3-man Ravage, not too shabby. Bagel's about to die, and Mr. Mizuki fleeing for his life. Disruption buying himself a little bit more space. Howl leaps in. The debuff, X-Smash debuff is on him, unfortunately. So he's not doing all too much damage. He's actually only doing 90 damage a swing right now. Notro's going to take a fall. Never mind. The Juke's coming up from him. Reincarnate. Keep himself alive. Astro Prisma on Boondoggle. Another Whistle. More than happy to sacrifice his life. They're able to get 4 for 1. Never mind. All it cost was a Reincarnate. So 4.5. So 4 for 1 and for half a kill. And they should be able to start pressuring the high ground. Timbersaw though, with that many Bloodstone shots, he's immediately back into the fray. And the Anchor Smash on the Slark doing so much work, it completely prevented him from going to go for a kill. Looks like he's going for the Cranium Basher. Understudy with the Aegis, playing balls to the wall, pops the BKB, leaps, and they are able to kill the Tuskarr, who wasn't able to drop a Sigil or his Walless Punch, so able to kill the Jakiro very quickly on. And the Shadow Demon couldn't do anything. All he could do is disrupt himself, but he was already dead. And they still have not dropped the Sanity. I walk on the Outworld Destroyer, being very, very stingy with the Sanity's clips. If they ever catch out 3 heroes again like that with the Ravage, you immediately drop the Sanity, just because if you don't kill them, you're dropping them very low. If they happen to have enough intelligence to resist you, they're losing the vast majority of the mana pool. You want to drop at the start of a fight, similar to the Thunder God's Wrath from Zeus. There's no point dropping at the end of a fight when everyone's already dead. You're limiting the maximum potential damage you could do. You want to drop it as early as possible. If you ever see 4 or 5 heroes grouped up, since it has such a huge AoE, you drop it on them. Drop it low enough that it forces them to retreat. If the enemy team starts to fight at half HP, they're not going to stick around and fight. They're forced to back off. And when they break like that, when they rout, you just run them down. especially with the Blink Dagger up on the Wraith King, the SMY, and the Leap available on the Mirana. We've got a smoke engagement coming in. They know that they don't have to Ravage, they don't have to Reincarnate. Sack, snowballing up, the understudy. Snowball flying towards me, leaps himself to safety, probably the worst target you want to snowball. Howling eats an arrow to the face, the understudy pops the BKB once again. They go down, there's the Sandy's Eclipse. They instantly kill 3. That's the power of the Sandy's Eclipse. You drop it very quickly. No takes the fall to the Chakram. Boondoggle fleeing for his life. Another whistles out for revenge. Blink Dagger up on him as well as Wraith Blast. He blinks. Boondoggle unfortunately zips himself into the trees. Crap pack prize vision. They thought he went high.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
They're able to kill off Jakiro in the backhand as well. Boots of Travel now up on the Timbersaw. And that Sandy's Eclipse, they didn't even have Ravage for that. Just off the back of that Sandy, it's a disadvantage as a Snowball. Well, it's a very powerful initiation and counter initiation spell. If you pull on your team like that, you clump up, especially onto a Mirana, they could see you coming from a mile away, they could leap away. And that's the hero with the Aegis as well. Teamfight lost off the back of that Tuskarr Snowball. Snowball, you want to use it defensively more than aggressively, just because if you happen to be in Snowball when the Ravage flies out, you can actually suck in your teammates and provide essentially a 4-second disruption for your entire team. So if you're somehow able to, if Tuskarr is able to not get hit by the Ravage, if he's able to snowball in time right as he sees the Ravage flying out, he can actually grab his teammates, keep them alive for as long as possible, and then try to take a fight off the back of that. But TDT, they've got a much better late game lineup. So Slark, while he has gone up to a great start, he's nothing compared to the OD, especially with the Anchor Smash debuff doing so much work against the Slark, since the majority of Slark's damage comes from the Essence Shift, which is based off his base attack. Every time he gets hit by the Anchor Smash, his damage is cut in half. And that's proven to be quite a critical factor in engagements. Jakiro, doing what he can, actually tries to max out Dual Breath as opposed to the Ice Path, so going for a very much more aggressive build. Usually you want to max out the Ice Path in that support position, Jakiro. As well, Dual Breath is nice. It requires you to get up close and personal. It requires you to be initiating on them. Since Jakiro turns like a truck, his cast point is awful. Whereas the Ice Path means that you could use it defensively. If the enemy team clump up and initiate on you, you could catch 2-3 heroes up with an Ice Path. Understudy eats an Ice Wall, walks through, starts smacking on Sack. Sack turns around and punches him in the face. Understudy's going to be very careful. He's got the Aegis to the Immortal. Nado whistles there. Sack instantly pops his Shadow Blade. Himself alive. No trade goes on Boondoggle. No trade dealing a lot of damage. Moonlight Shadow being dropped. Bagel runs and gets critted in the face. He immediately takes a fall. Outworld going toe to toe to Jakiro. 2-man Ravage. Howell pops his Shadow Dance. He's going to be able to kill the Wraith King. But unfortunately, that pops reincarnates. What he wanted you to do. It's a trap. Pounces himself to safety. Boondoggle's going to be the one taking the fall as he eats the Wraith Fire Blast to the face. Snowball going on Crap Pack. Sack really wants that kill. He's going to be able to get it. It'll cost him his life as he eats an Ice Blast to the face. Ancient Apparition turns around, blasts him. And Slark, once again, the only hero left alive. That Anchor Smash doing so much to limit his effectiveness, and Slark relies on being able to pick off the hero very quickly at the start of the fight. That's what the QAF are dependent on. They're relying on the Walrus Punch, they're relying on the Slark burst damage. And TDT, they're tanky enough to be able to withstand this. The only hero that they can reliably kill at the start of the fight is the Ancient Apparition. And once he throws out his Ice Blast, it doesn't even matter if he's dead or alive. If he's able to get that Ice Blast off before he dies, he's done his job, similar to a Venomancer. Tidehunter, there's no way in hell you're going to be able to burst him down, especially since he's the one with the Anchor Smash, going towards the Refresher Orb. Another Whistle, he's got Reincarnate, so whenever you find him with a Reincarnate, you're not going to be able to bring him down. Looks like he's going towards the Assault Cuirass. No Blade Mail up on him. I guess he recognizes that they need more late game presence, since the late game is heavily in their favor. Since Tuskarr tapers off fairly quickly, so does the Slark, unless he's able to completely snowball the control. And while he was off to a great start, in these engagements, they're just ignoring the Slark with the Anchor Smash debuff. They could just choose to completely ignore him. Boondoggle, off to a fantastic start. Ever since he's picked up his Bloodstone, he started to taper off. Had 13 charges at one point, now he's only got 7. Still working towards the Shiva's Guard. That's not necessarily anything that Timbersaw is doing wrong, it's just the fact that BKBs are coming online with the core heroes, and the other heroes on TDT are very, very tanky. So they're just weathering the storm, and going for these massive teamfight ultis with the Ravage as well as the Sandy's Eclipse. Mystic Staff up on Outworld Destroyer, so his Sanity is starting to do a huge amount of work. Sentry Ward being dropped. They should be able to take it out, but Moonlight Shadow being used by the understudy. That's one of the reasons why Mirana is such a powerful hero. It's been consistently picked up in almost every game. Moonlight Shadow is essentially a global smoke of the seat that you could use on the 2-minute cooldown. Every time it's up, you could group up as 5, use the ultimate, rotate into the enemy team. If they don't have sentries, use preventively. You could even just initiate on them off the back of the Moonlight Shadow. Otherwise, you could use it to move around the map unhindered. Notro almost has a Refresher Orb. With the Essence Aura, he's able to rush the Refresher Orb, since it means that he'll also have a chance of use his other abilities. Especially with the fact that there's also Arcane Boots up on the Ancient Apparition. So OD giving you a bit more flexibility with what you can do with your heroes. Desolator now up on the understudy. While I was questioning the early BKB pickup, they've been making it work just off the back of the Teamfight Ultimates. Still going to question that Sanjin Yasha, but maybe that's just his call signature. Tuskarr going for the BKB, he'll have it up in 700 gold. Tuskarr with the BKB is fairly scary just because he can't walk up and just ignore your spells. If the Sigil's constantly being able to stay alive in these fights, especially with the Shiva's Guard, it's a massive amount of negative attack speed that's been applied. Especially the heroes like the Outworld Destroyer that don't have much attack speed to work with. A lot of pings coming out. The understudy, not too sure what he was pinging about. Will be interesting to see what enemy chooses to go for next. Honestly, he could go for something like a butterfly, just go for a pure late game item. And once he picks that up, Slark can't do anything to the Mirana. The advantage of the S and Y, I suppose, is it does give you a lot of beefy stats. The Sage gives you more HP than the Vanguard. And the snare is always nice, the 32% snare on the Greater Maim when it does proc. And since Mirana has such excellent time on target to begin with, not too shabby an item. Another whistle, gradually building towards that AC. Notro has his Refresher Orb, so he's going to have that flying out to him. So that means a double Ravage in the next engagement. Especially since it's only a level 2 Ravage, not level 3. Level 3 Ravage when it starts to get dicey, since it means that you won't have mana to use anything else. But with a level 2 Ravage, more than happy to be able to blow both in the fight, as well as use his other abilities. Since you have to keep in mind with Tidehunter, Anchor Smash does a huge amount of damage, so if you land a Ravage, Anchor Smash, Gush, then be able to refresh yourself, Ravage again, then Anchor Smash. And usually the only thing that stops you from doing that is your limited mana pool, but if you're able to get an Essence or a proc, or since you've only got a level 2 Ravage, it's 225 compared to 325, lets you throw out your Anchor Smashes, so it's 450 damage just from the Anchor Smash. Then the damage from the Ravage as well as Lockdown Time. Combo that with the Asani's Eclipse, and that's a one fight just off the back of that. Sigil though, 60% attack speed slow. If they're able to pick up a Shiva's Guard, 100 attack speed slow. And then an Outworld Destroyer that only has 203. That cuts the attack speed in half. Smoke of the Sea Gang coming in. They're going to spot out the Invisor, never mind, Nighttime Vision. 2 OP, there we go. Notro spots it out. He's going to snag that. He's going to walk right into Bagel. New York Bagel eats Sun in the face. Arcane Orb, he dies instantly. All he wanted to do was drop a ward. Hashtag just support things. Sack, the Shadow Blade pickup does give him a lot of burst damage, but the drawback to it, honestly, a Blink Dagger is much more preferable, because if you have the Blink Dagger off cooldown and you have the Snowball, you can't die. The Snowball gives you 4 seconds of vulnerability. If you shift Q your Blink, similar to a Parka Phase Shift, but unlike a Phase Shift, it's 4 seconds as opposed to 3.25. So it lets you instantly be able to blink out. Also gives you a lot more reliable initiation than using it aggressively, but he eats an arrow to the face, and the understudy slaps him around. Now the whistle blinks up, 4-stuff, Mr. Pazuki, but he's going to be taking a fall as well. 3 kills for nothing. That's the tier 2 on the bottom lane they're going to be losing. Shiva's Guard now up on the Timbersaw, but the understudy is starting to ball out of control. A very aggressive wall being placed. Shadow Demon pinging it out, and then never mind, it's Mr. Pazuki. And they're going to go for Roshan instead. Negative armor coming up from the Desolator, as well as the Gush if they start to use it. Never mind, they used to blow off the Lincoln Sphere. Another whistle almost has the Assault Cuirass. Mirana building towards that. Actually sells her boots, has boots of travel flying up to her. Building towards the Butterfly. And that makes her completely invincible to the Slark, since with the Anchor Smash debuff, as well as the Evasion, Slark just doesn't hit hard enough to be able to do all too much damage. Mirana can simply turn around, wait out the Shadow Dance, and then stand tall. But with the Abyssal Blade pickup, that could be a Son of Life coming out for quick and fast. Since the Anchor Smash is based off base attack. At least I believe it's base attack only. Oh no, it's a complete damage reduction, never mind.
The Radiant's bottom tower has seen better days.
Not too much Slark can do. BKB up on the Tuskarr. I'm not too sure if the Radiant side should be looking to defend this. I don't think they can.
Radiant's bottom tower.
Running forward, he's gonna catch out Boondoggle, Timber chain himself forward. Ravage catches out 2, catches out 3. He's got the refresh, so he can Ravage out again. There we go. Never mind. He's caught himself in frozen. He freezes himself. Hell, Shadow Dance being wasted, and he dies again. He finally takes a fall. Mr. Pazowski, he's just gonna get right clicked down, and that looks like game over for the boys in Quick and Fast. Notra almost was unable to get that second Ravage off.
Always the weakest tower.
Was able to pull it off. Only clipped the Slark, but since they was able to waste the Shadow Dance, more than worth it.
Radiant's bottom
Butterfly now up in the understudy,
Radiant's middle tower.
finishing his arms in the enemy base, and GG being called for game number 1. So that looks like it. 41 minutes into the game, Quick and Fast had a very powerful early game advantage, but they didn't count for the BKB. TDT playing the patient game, playing it safe. Once they're able to go for the conservative items, with the BKB up on the 2 core heroes, they can really start to take these huge teamfight engagements. So just going to take a quick pause and we'll be right